Welcome back. A study published by the Journal of Eating Disorders is taking a deeper look into the psychological and physical effects of a disturbing trend happening on social media. What's going on is that a large number of accounts are celebrating extreme thinness by uploading pictures of skeletal women. And joining us now to discuss the dangers of this is an eating disorder survivor and specialist and the founder of the Kyla Fox Center, Kyla Fox. Welcome to What She Said.
Hi, thank you for having me. So great to be here.
The accounts feature selfies taken by girls who want to show off their low-calorie consumption, their emaciated bodies, and they highlight protruding hip bones, spines, thigh gaps, and collarbones. Why do you think this is happening?
I think pro-ana sites have...
That's pro-anorexic, right?
Pro-anorexic sites, yes, are not new. I think the difference now is just that on Instagram and within social media, there's just there's so much more space for people to actually show this stuff, and there's so much more space for people to have access to it. But what we're actually seeing in these posts is no different than what we've always seen. It's just more dispersed.
I always had the impression, I guess wrongly, that people who had eating disorders went to great lengths to hide them socially, but obviously not.
Well, I think both exist. I think there's a place of wanting to hide perhaps from the world, from people who they know, from people who know them, and wanting to, and eating disorders really do live in secrecy. But I also feel like there's a space of comfort with connecting to a community of people who are supporting the same cause. So in that way, I feel like it inevitably kind of reaches a person who's suffering, whereas I think people in the world wouldn't be supporting that. And that's where I think the hiding comes in.
The fact is, though, it is a disease. It's an illness.
Yeah, it's the most severe mental health issue, for
exactly.
sure.
So are they supporting this, or are they in fact looking for support from other people to get through it and get better?
I think, again, both. But I think it depends on where someone is at in terms of their suffering. So, of course, there's a whole spectrum of where a person moves through when they're unwell into getting well. And if people are still in a place where they just want to stay unwell and stay in their eating disorder, then, sites like pro-ana sites or pro-ana support will be that place that they would gravitate towards. But if people are in a different space of their recovery, where they're wanting to get better, where they're wanting to get help, they wouldn't be connecting to those sites.
But you're concerned that these social platforms could be more harmful than the pro-anorexia websites because they're more accessible and they have a larger reach. I mean, the hashtags include thinspiration, fitspiration, bonespiration.
Yeah. I mean, I think in a way that when there was a time where, we might have been able to monitor what our kids were looking at or what people were doing on the internet, we don't have access to that kind of control anymore. It's everywhere. Social media is rampant. So we can't actually control what people are looking at when they're looking at it. And the amount of people that would be able to support these kinds of images are everywhere. So the ability for it to penetrate much further than it ever did when it was just websites, let's say in the 90s, is totally different now.
Let me ask you, your concern would appear to be primarily for children, for young women maybe, or men growing up seeing this.
Well, I mean, I think that is a major concern. I think it's a concern for really anybody who's affected by eating disorders or disordered eating, that these images would be prevalent. Because I feel like when people are suffering, when you see those kinds of images, if you're not suffering in those same ways, then there's also this feeling that you might not even be suffering right, that you're not even doing the eating disorder right either. And so in some ways, I feel like these images almost promote the way an eating disorder should be done, which is really not what eating disorders even ultimately always look like. I mean, there's a whole array of what bodies look like when people are suffering.
Can we go back to that you're not doing the eating disorder right?
Yeah. I mean,
what does that mean?
It's common feedback that people speak about, because when you're suffering, you literally feel as though you have this voice in your mind, because it is a mental health issue, that is telling you, giving you a whole list of rules and regimes that you have to align with. And the intention is that within those rules, it's also telling you how terrible you are, how bad you are, how awful you are, how disgusting you are. It's the most negatively evolving illness. And so when you have that kind of noise in your head all the time, the reason why a person continues to connect to the eating disorder is because they're being told that they have to do more. That, oh, you did that yesterday, now you have to do this today. Or, oh, you didn't listen to that yesterday, well, now you have to do this again today. It's very punitively based. And so if somebody is not engaging in the eating disorder right, they're probably not getting the results that their eating disorder is telling them they should be getting, or that they think they should be getting. So let's say they look in the mirror, they may not see the aesthetic that they should be seeing insofar as the eating disorder is concerned.
So then how do we talk to our children about this without adding to the risk of causing, a psychological problem? Because if somebody, you don't want them to become anorexic, you want to point out this awareness, but you don't want to raise awareness of the issue. So where's the line?
It's a good question. I feel like so much of what people speak about when they think about eating disorders, or when they want to talk about eating disorders, is they want to talk about food and they want to talk about the body. And of course, that's how eating disorders show themselves. But eating disorders are not about that. They're about what's going on with a person at a much deeper level, psychologically, emotionally, circumstantially, just even having a negative self-critic. And so I think the things that we actually have to be talking about are really more about how do we ask our kids about what they feel about their bodies? How do we teach them how to have a safe and regulated relationship with food? How do we give them space to talk about what they feel? And really whatever it is that they feel. I have little girls. I have almost a 1-year-old and a 2.5-year-old. My 2.5-year-old already is, very emotionally expressive. And so even to just give her space when she feels frightened, instead of saying things like, oh, you shouldn't be scared, which is, I think, what we try to do. I think there's a space to say, like, why are you afraid? Like, let's talk about that. I feel like emotionally, we have to give our children space to communicate what they're experiencing so that they can feel safe with what's happening to them and how things are affecting them. And then I feel like that inadvertently translates into the way they take care of their body, into the way they feel like they're worthy of certain things. So I feel like that's the kind of work that has to be focused on.
So what was your eating disorder?
I was affected by anorexia and an overexercise addiction, but throughout the journey of trying to get well, it morphed and shaped itself. So it turned into binge eating, purging. I feel like I encompass the entire spectrum of eating disorders, which is the case for most anybody who's suffering. We don't fit nicely into boxes.
And what did people do wrong when they talked to you, or what could they have done better to help you? Because you are now okay.
I feel like, I don't know if anyone did anything wrong or if anyone did anything right. I feel a lot of it was timing, a readiness that I sort of came to. But I also feel like what didn't work for me is that my parents would send me to professionals that didn't really understand eating disorders. And I was able to lie. I would sit in a room with someone and just basically lie and tell them that I was fine. I needed people to call me on it. I needed people to be really clear and really honest with me. That would have provoked me to have felt like I could have been honest too.
So is that what happens at the Kyla Fox Center, which is a treatment center in Toronto?
Yeah, we really do believe in transparency and honesty. Like I said before, I think because eating disorders live in secrecy, if you allow a person who's suffering to continue to be secretive, then they will continue to harm. But as soon as we can help people to be differently honest, then they have to indicate what's happening for them. They have to face themselves.
So if I know somebody, Kate and I run into somebody and we think that person has an eating disorder, or let's say we have a child that has an eating disorder, what should we do?
I would say that I think you should be honest about how you're feeling, about what's happening for that person that you love. And that may look like, I love you. I'm worried about you. I've noticed these things that you're doing with food in your body. Can we talk about that? Can I take you to this place? Or what are you feeling about your body? I feel like to be able to have more honest and directive conversations is important. and to not hide behind the fact that you don't want to make someone feel uncomfortable.
And how can they connect with the Kyla Fox Center to get more information?
On our website, www.kylafoxcenter.com, and then also on social media at Kyla Fox Recovery.
And Kyla, is there an age restriction, or is it anybody?
We see everybody who's affected by eating disorders and disordered eating, the entire spectrum, and across the spectrum of eating disorder suffering. So not just anorexia.
Well, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you
This
so
was
much for
very
having me.
enlightening, I think, for all of us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
This is What She Said. Stay with us.